Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are while you're watching this this video cast or podcast, whatever we're calling it these days. My name is Gerry Mecca, and I am the host of the Mecca Minutes. Mecca Minutes has evolved over the years from simple discussions about technology that maybe people didn't really know or understand to what has become a more recent topic, and that is how to conduct good leadership in organizations these days using the fractional leadership market. Over the last 10 or 12 years, I used to say this was an emerging market, but now it's pretty much commonplace. The roles in some organizations, particularly with AI, are allowing companies to move very quick, get products to market very quickly, and at the same time, sometimes they need some injection of leadership, and sometimes they need an interim. But this is particularly the full-time role in a fractional way, 10 or 20 hours a week. Maybe the company doesn't have a high-tech situation where they need a full-time CIO, or maybe they are super high-tech and everything is about technology, but they need somebody who's a little bit more operational-centric. And their CIO or CEO or COO might end up being a fractional leadership position. My guest today is Jamey Cummings with JM Search. Jamey and I have known each other for, goodness, you know what? I remembered the first time we met, you had a role at Saputo Dairy. And
wow, that's going way back.
I know, and I referred Mario Skirchley.
Yeah, he got the gig.
Yeah,
yes,
and
he did.
So I was very happy at Dr. Pepper, and I appreciated the reach out. And I know you guys in that business, you're not generally looking for some knucklehead sitting at home. You're hoping that you've got somebody who's got a gig and that might be in a transitional stage. So,
yeah,
Jamey, tell us about JM and what you've been doing. That was it, Corn Ferry?
It was Corn Ferry.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to believe. I've been doing executive search for almost 20 years now, 19 years. Dang. It's a job that not a job, it's a profession I stumbled into.
Okay.
Reinvented myself multiple times. Right place, right time at Corn Ferry. I had a military background and cybersecurity, if you may recall, 2011 timeframe, for those who've not been in and around the technology space, became a lot more of a real thing. It got some buzz, and I was fortunate that I was tapped on the shoulder with a colleague of mine. Her name is Aileen. She had been an Army communications officer, and they said, "Hey, why don't you guys grab this wave and go with it?" And so that was like my final reinvention. And as you well know, probably over half of information security officers report to CIOs. Yeah. And so that's where I had the opportunity to start doing CIO work when you and I first met each other. Mm-hmm. Almost 5 years ago to the day, May 1st is Friday, I joined JM Search, and it was at the time a firm I'd never heard of. Mm-hmm. Very under the radar. Mm-hmm. We're changing that little by little. I was the first ever employee in Texas, so I was a plank owner here. Okay. It was a chance to really go into on the ground floor, building out an IT executives practice that was it was nascent, I think, mm-hmm. I would say. And fast forward now here in Dallas, we have a physical office, 15 people. The firm itself has grown almost threefold in revenue since I joined, and it's been a great ride. But as a firm, we're pretty diversified. Mm-hmm. We cover a lot of industries, a lot of functions, and I'm fortunate to co-lead our IT executives practice, which we refer to it. So we recruit CIOs, CTOs, mm-hmm. chief digital officers. There's been a proliferation of titles.
I say, call me EIEIO.
There
Just
you
call
go.
me.
Yeah, and information security officers. And that's pretty agnostic of industry and geography and scale. So we as a firm do more than that, but that's what my direct team primarily focuses on.
No, that's awesome. And I'm not surprised that you ended up going into owning an office. Where are they based?
So the firm itself is based in what we lovingly refer to as KOP, or King of Prussia.
Okay.
That's where our founder, John
I'm from
Marshall.
Lancaster.
Yeah, there you go. Not far from there.
That's right.
That is still the mothership, the center of gravity, but we have offices in Dallas and Chicago, New York, and we have some, I'd say, fledgling satellite offices where we're building critical mass in Boston, Atlanta, and the Bay Area. Okay. But we are, I would say, we're probably not doing ourselves justice by me saying we punch above our weight, but we are getting, we're having the opportunity to compete and doing quite well, but we're still what I would say Goldilocks. We're big enough that we can operate very well at whether it's private equity or enterprise, but we're still small and nimble enough that we don't get in our own way. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
I mean, so many of the big organizations, they're putting out newsletters, they're specializing in just board placements or you name it, and I guess they have to diversify more and more just to be as big as they are and keep everybody happy. It's great to have I think a nimble advocate out there working for, I know you're working for your clients. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. They're the ones you're making happy. But knowing that you can tap into, particularly here in the Dallas market. I loved Dallas when I was a CIO. I loved I still love it. They still invite me. The only group that doesn't is Gartner. They have very strict rules about you have to be a sitting CIO with a gazillion dollars, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I founded that group, but I appreciate where you're coming from. But I do love the network. I think it's probably the strongest thing I've ever, turning to it when I had problems and being here in Dallas, I'm not surprised that it's a rich market and that you've grown so fast and gotten so big.
Well, what's been interesting to me about this profession in general, it's obviously very people-centric, but the people that you meet over time, depending upon where they are in their stage of their career at that particular time, you could play a different role for them and vice versa. So the time I called you, you were happy, but you were a referral source.
Sure.
People you build trust with will always be a good referral source, and that's often where we are referred to some of our best candidates we may not have known about. And frankly, a lot of times, not exclusively, there's good reason for people to be in transition. Sometimes the most attractive candidates are the passive candidates that you need to get an introduction to them or seek them out. But if I had reached you at a different time, you may or may not have been a candidate. But the other thing is you could potentially be a client. So the client, like you said, the company is the one who we serve, but ultimately you need to serve your candidates well also, because there's a few things. One is they may land somewhere and be an advocate and need you to help them build a team.
Of course.
Or they can always be a good referral source and say, hey, have you ever heard of a firm that does X, Y, and Z? Oh yeah, you should talk to these guys. And it's just another way you can get an at-bat to go win the work. So I really tried to make sure I have my team focus on really try not to be transactional in your relationships. Especially with it, for example, I frankly think it should not be an unfair advantage that it is in executive search. Something as simple as treating the candidates with respect, the way you'd like to be treated as a candidate. So I use the phrase, the groomsmen or the bridesmaids. Only one person's going to get the job. But if we're doing a job correctly, there's another 4 to 5 candidates who are really, really good. And if they're talking to you, chances are they may land somewhere else. Well, it's shocking to me, Gerry, how often I'll call a candidate and say, hey, listen, they're going to another candidate, and they thank me. Say, you know what, I'm disappointed, but thank you for telling me. How often they either get ghosted or just get a perfunctory email.
Oh my God, you're hitting on something.
And it shouldn't be that hard to differentiate yourself, but literally it is possible.
Jamey, it is. So part of that network I told you about is talking some CIOs who didn't get gigs off the ledge for those very reasons.
Well, you invest a lot of time and energy and passion, and then you don't get the gig.
Not even a no. You get a nothing.
Yeah,
and I get the little email that says, I could remember I wanted to work in Major League Baseball. And this was like 3 or 4 Christmases ago.
I know you like baseball.
Love baseball, right? Man. Okay. I told the Rangers, look,
you'd work for free.
Almost. They didn't say that. They didn't even accept it. In fact, the last time they transitioned, they had a guy who was as a consultant, Pete Walsh, a great guy, and so they hit a home run. I can't knock it, but when I applied for the job in New York, number one was, you'd relocate to New York? I said, if you knew what was going on in my life right now, yes. You have no, and we won't go into that, but the point is I was relocatable. And everything went fine. And we were like maybe 2 or 3 candidates left. And I get this email that's the generic, goodbye, I'm not, blah. And I called the recruiter right away and I said, what in the world happened? He goes, oh my God, you didn't get an email, did you? And I said, yeah. He goes, I was going to write you personally. They jumped out ahead. And I felt actually that he was very sincere. But that is something that for the most part, I can't tell you how many, and of course, when I was actively looking before I decided it was time to just do what the hell I want.
I will say no one bats 1,000. I know there's times where I have forgotten to follow up with people in a timely manner. In fact, I do this less than I used to, but when I was really in the throes of managing multiple searches at any given time, in my office I had a big whiteboard, and I had everything color coded. Like Gerry, Mecca is like where they were in the stage of the process was a different color, and their name was not erased off there until they'd been signed off one way or the other. Anyway, I think getting back to my original point, I really encourage people to play the long game, build relationships, and then I wish I could give whoever said this to me a few years ago credit. There's a former colleague and a friend of mine named Maiko Ashby. She leads all executive recruiting for PepsiCo. I'm still going to give her credit. I think she said it, but she said it wasn't her. It was like, if you really think about it, at least she didn't remember saying it. Search is bought more than it's sold. I don't come up to you and as a head of HR and say, "Hey, Gerry,
here's my wares.
I've got a CIO search to sell you."
Plenty of people think that's the way it works. But
well, I think you want to have competence and connectivity. So you need to build a brand and reputation for doing good work. That's like table stakes. And then you want to build relationships, and sometimes there's a little bit of like give and take. Like I'm a big fan of Adam Grant. You want to be able to give advice or make connections or otherwise without expecting anything in return. And I've had a number of opportunities where a search opportunity has come my way years after having a relationship with someone. It's a very long sales cycle. And it's easy for me to say that now that I've got less or gray hair because you're really driven and you want to focus. But it is very much bought more than it's sold, and that's the mindset I really try to.
That's.
But you got to be patient. You got to play the long game to do it effectively.
So let's transition a little into this fractional.
Okay.
And because you're predominantly tech, we'll stick with CIOs, CISOs, CDOs, CEIOs, whatever.
Okay.
So when I first started doing this, everything was called interim. The term fractional only seemed to pop up in the CISO space. And factually, it was even virtual. So a VCISO, and I was a little bit dubious of it because, I don't know these guys. They're calling me up and saying they'll do, this is what the package is. You get pen tests on this interval. You get SOC assistance on this, and it just felt a little squishy. But over time, whether it was the marketplace getting tight with money, this is the thing that I think really happened, and I'll kind of let you think about this, but IT became much more what do they call it? The consumerization of IT. Guys like us know how to use a computer. Guys and gals that are in business became more and more adept at using the technology, so much so that the end user computing part of it kind of faded into the, hey, this table stakes, like you said, you got to have a job, you got to know how to use a laptop. When I went and got my master's degree, I was like the only person in the whole class with a laptop. It was so I couldn't.
You were an early adopter, right?
I was an early, but I couldn't imagine that people weren't savvy enough. So combination of the market compression, not necessarily valuing the CIO as they did once upon a time, the mystery man, the technology was elusive, so don't tell me what you're doing. Just make sure that the lights stay on.
The trains are running on time.
That's right. Yeah. And then bring in the CIO or the CFO who came in with technology with 2 or 3 SAP implementations under his belt, or the CMO who came in with Salesforce, and suddenly you get in a room and the CIO wasn't the only guy who could really talk this stuff. And it became more popular for the CEO to say, you know what, that CMO knows what the hell he's talking about. Oh, that CFO knows. Let's make him an IT director, or even downplay the role. That was the wrong direction. You got junior people who had no business being in the room. Then the fractional opened up. There were guys like me that wanted to do 10 or 20 hours a week, maybe 2 clients, but still not just one place, not sit in an office, be a little bit more virtual, and the fee would be half what but they would get almost 100%, because really at the end of the day, when you look at Fractional, you're showing up at the office for 10 or 12, 8 hours a day or whatever, 10 hours a week. You really put in your max effort, even if it's not, expected. We can't work any other way if we're worth our salt. And so what I'm seeing, and I'm curious what you're seeing, is this role that has emerged. And again, I think it's probably across the C-suite, but in this, particularly with CIOs and CISOs, that this fractional marketplace has emerged. You're out there selling. I realize, making relationships,
waiting for the search to be bought.
Waiting for the search to be bought. Thank you. And yet, what's happening in the fractional world as far as you're concerned?
You have,
or if anything,
you have way more visibility than I do. I would say my observation has been the same on the information security side of things, where especially small SMB type companies, it's just hard for them to justify spending the amount of money for information security talent where the demand has been so high. And there are there's efficiencies of scale to have them do the monitoring and things like that. So I've found that MSSPs, the outsourced services, and then it's called vCISO or fractional CISO. That's one I'm personally more familiar with. And I guess I'm not surprised that maybe I would assume SMB would be more likely to do the
for sure. Yeah, if I were virtual or no brainer CIO. On the 500 million and lower. It gets a little sketchy at $1 billion, but I've even seen some organizations. I had a guest, Greg Welchins, the last conference, last call, and he told me that I think they're closing in on $2 billion, and they have a couple of virtual roles now. Virtual, fractional, they're buying up other businesses. And so they needed somebody for a few years that was going to be very transactional and focus on acquisition integration. Yeah. And so that's the other aspect of this. Yes, the outsourcing and MSPs, MSSP, whatever. Yeah. There is the compression. The market is tight on money. There's the growth of retiring older folks like me and other IT folks who want the
seasoned. I like
seasoned. Sorry, I said older. You have to. You're probably dealing with this all the time. I just say what's on my mind.
I like to refer to myself as seasoned.
Yes, you're seasoned.
Rather than older.
I'm a little over seasoned, I think. But and then this other aspect. A protracted strategic multi-year role that's specifically something on their longer term plan.
I would say I've not personally been privy to more of the proliferation. Well, maybe it's a strong word. I have not seen it as much on the CIO front. I will tell you though that there's a firm that I've gotten to know pretty well named Fortium Partners.
Sure,
familiar with them?
Very familiar.
They're pretty busy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much what they do would be like full-time fractional.
Yeah.
But I've definitely seen them. In fact, I've had a chance to work with them where they had someone parachute in there for a few months as we were conducting the search to bring the person on full-time. They had a lay of the land. They were keeping things moving so they weren't stalling technology initiatives while they're waiting for that person.
That's the interim.
Yeah, interim. Yeah, I've seen more of that.
There's a ton of that.
But the fractional, I don't know. I should keep my eye out for it. I've just not seen as much of it yet. Personally.
So where it was probably Christmas 3 years ago, the first, Shrek company, Korn Ferry, called me about fractional. So they actually have a practice. So that was the first time I said, wait a minute. I thought this was just a word of mouth market where a guy would hang his, shingle or put something out on his LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm available for 10 hours a week, and now it sounded to me like somebody somewhere in the recruiting space said fractional.
I've heard of that. I've heard of it more so personally on the CFO front. The reason I say that is our firm we have a really strong heritage in recruiting senior executives for lower middle market private equity firms. And pretty consistently, the finance function is the one where there's the most demand to really professionalize, if you will. Because a lot of times these are family-owned organizations. The next generation doesn't necessarily want to
be a
take
part
the
of it.
helm,
Yep, right.
and they have not necessarily had the experience with like larger firms, and so you bring someone in there, but that market in particular for talent is hyper efficient. If you want someone who's got the experience, they've had multiple transactions, turns in private equity or otherwise. If everyone wants to demands the same talent at the same time, I could see where there would be a demand for someone on more of the fractional side of things, because there's an imbalance between supply and demand. Maybe
you're right.
CIO is heading that direction.
CFO is first. You're absolutely right. And the fact we focused on that, I could just as easily have a guy sitting there that does a lot of CFOs and will be telling me this is huge, because I do believe, even Greg's comment was when they started looking, there were several companies that were bringing them names, particularly in the acquisition. But to your point, SMB, yes.
That's what I've heard. Is I've heard of other firms out there that have been building fractional practices, and the first one is CFO. Just because of the supply-demand imbalance, for sure.
I think that
seems like maybe there's an evolution towards CIO being one of the next ones. Could be.
And you started it by saying, what is the head tech dude's title? He could be CTO, CIO, CDO, CDIO, CITO, CISO.
We're seeing all those.
That's right. And you can almost see that is the fractioning of what was once one role. Back when I was doing IT at Dr. Pepper, even before that, the CIO had all the infrastructure, app support, call center, all the desk side assistance, all the outsourcing agreements, all the licensing and software purchases, servers, data centers. Then he also had innovation, app design.
The scope is expanding. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so you can now, of course, that's why there's a CDO and a CIO and a CTO, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But imagine you're a company that's out there. Again, I'm willing to accept this middle market categorization, that need a CDO, need a CISO, but do not see that as a full-time position.
Or getting back to my comment on the CFOs, a person that brings everything that they want, they may not be able to afford them, or to say, well, I'm not going to spend that type of money.
That's correct.
Where some of it may just be pragmatically, we can't attract the level of talent we think we need to get this job done.
Now I'm going to give you the next question, and this is the one that I don't want to be too controversial, but when I started doing my independent consulting and hooked up with a popular 3-letter acronym business, who obviously people will look at my LinkedIn and know who that is, but it was shocking how many corporations were taking chances on unprepared directors of IT and unprepared even VPs to take over the chief information role because they were afraid to lose them. They had tribal knowledge, and if they didn't get a C title, they were going to move to the next company. How much of that have you encountered? And in the case of that, how often? One guy gave me a statistic that I sounded a little bit crazy, but you look for a CIO, you say nobody is internally that looks like they're the right person. You go out in the market and you discover the cost, shocks you. You come back and re-look at your internal team and decide to give one of the guys or gals in the role a shot at the CIO. And a year later, it's a disaster. And it was worth it to have hired the person that they looked for in the first place. But lots of this has been going on. Do you see qualified or unqualified people being put into position because they would otherwise skitter off and take tribal knowledge and make companies
I don't know that I've seen it happen, but it seems very plausible that could happen. So, for example, occasionally we will be asked to do a confidential search, partly because they don't want to. The organization wants to avoid disruption.
For sure.
The person who's there has a lot of tribal knowledge, or institutional knowledge is all in their head, and we don't want them walking out right in the middle of it. And there's also, I think, a little bit of hey, let's go test the market and see if we think we can get what we need. And you may find out, oh boy, we may not be able to attract the talent we want. And if they had ripped off the Band-Aid and gone to market, then they would have
told everybody everything, and that person might just leave.
So sometimes I could imagine that person gets the nod internally for those different reasons. I've not seen one where maybe it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost like you ransom the organization. I'm going to leave this information unless you give me the title. I have not seen it personally, but I could see that.
You know what? That's the conspiracy theorist in me. Because of this network that I hang in. And in fact, there was a discussion recently with Kenton Kistler about executive connection and trying to do a panel with, people who are looking to transition to a new role and give them some insights. But in that conversation, we talked about the number of organizations that have put a CIO in, and within a year they were gone. And I used ChatGPT, and I went out and I did some research. Okay. It wasn't quite as bad as the boasting where I shouldn't say boasting, but where Kent was coming from. But he deals with so many people, and he sees them go into these roles, and then sees that they're out looking again. And it is it's just another, like you said, it's plausible. Something's going on in the interest of. I don't think it's short-sighted. Not like their interest of saving money, but sometimes they're not picking the one they need because they have decided that for whatever reason that role isn't. I can't afford it, or whatever.
Well, I think sometimes my observation is that organizations struggle with the traditional mindset is just, hey, back office, keep the trains running on time.
Yeah.
But now they're wrestling with the fact that every company out there, no matter what industry they're in some form or fashion, you are a technology company. Whether it's how do you build your brand in the market?
For sure.
How do you engage your customers in a more effective way? How do you utilize technology to keep up cost-wise, to maintain your margins, or whatever it might be? But I think some organizations, my observation is they still struggle with, but this is just a director or VP of IT.
That's right.
And like really making that leap to say, wow, technology is not just perfunctory, keep their trains running on time. It's a differentiator. And you may have different views internally of what you need to do there. I think it comes down to, are they convinced it's a strategic enough role that they need to invest to the extent is necessary to bring the talent that they need? Yeah. My sense is that's probably what organizations struggle with a lot.
I think you're right. I say sadly, I think you're right. These organizations you would think by now have arrived where they do realize that technology is everything.
Well, if I could overgeneralize, if you think about a small and medium-sized manufacturing company, it's just technology is not something that a manufacturing organization, dirt under the nails type environment is likely to believe that technology is a strategic differentiator. So that there's a mindset that you need people that are going to be a little bit more progressive in their thoughts, progressive and not politically, but progressive in the way that they use technology. That's not the only example, but we do a lot of manufacturing, and I do think there can be a lot of like mindsets like, well, we're just manufacturing stuff. We just need technology to do the ERP the billing and things like that. It's not a differentiator.
No. So and before we switch gears again, I did I'm teaching at UTD. We do these capstone projects.
Nice.
And for a second, if you've got a project, and I got 5 seniors who can knock it out in 15 weeks, let me know about some fall projects. But one of the companies, because there's so much NDA, they were a food products company.
Okay.
Very popular, yummy, very seasonal. Holidays, Thanksgiving, Easter. And of course, their predominant concerns were good manufacturing, good equipment for baking and packaging, and
it's focused on quality product.
They did a really good job on the e-commerce platform, so people could order it, and they did a pretty good job of using TikTok and all the different mediums for getting it out there early enough so they could anticipate demand and not be out of product. But that was pretty easy for them. It was like they could just wing it. What they came to the school for was, what are we missing? We don't even have time to look into our data to see anything. So the class took on the project, and there were a lot of different directions. We didn't necessarily go everywhere they were hoping we would go, but some of the things that were brought up by the students, like who always orders? Do you have a mechanism for going into your data and sending them out something that's saying, hey, you ordered this last year, do you want to order it again? Christmas is coming.
Hey, you're going to prompt the high propensity purchasers. Yeah.
And then they did have a whole, like, it was this classic rule. 20% of their customers bought enormously small orders.
But they didn't know that.
That's right.
Yeah.
They had no way of knowing. And they did have a way of knowing. They just didn't know how to get at it.
To me, that's where, you may not be surprised to hear, the hottest talent is data, AI.
Sure.
I mean, I get it. It's like, hey, we have all this information, but how do we just, first of all, to start with basic master data management.
Sure.
To make sure we're actually evaluating
that was
information that's actually
that was
accurate.
The first problem. It was huge. They would have, because they customized every package for Christmas and gift bags and things of that nature, it tended to be whoever typed in the free form character space. Sometimes they would just put the same product number with C for chocolate or P for peppermint or whatever. And then when you looked, you really didn't know what you were looking at. And so recommendations ended up being made about cleaning your data. You really can't do anything.
Well, you may not optimize, you may misallocate resources on the customers who are less likely to buy at higher volumes. Or it's classic, but it's a simple concept, but really hard to execute, obviously.
No, it is. So next, I just kind of want to, you and I obviously were wearing blue shirts. We didn't do that on purpose. It just
promise
it
was not on purpose. Yeah.
And I know we also have wrestling as another common thread.
Yeah.
I really didn't know that until I think you got inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Was it the Iowa?
I'm on the board of governors.
The board of
Hall
governors.
Of Fame.
That's right.
So I said, no. And my dad is actually inducted to the Iowa High School Wrestling Hall of Fame. But no, I was a pretty good wrestler, but not the Hall of Fame level.
Okay, well,
but I'm on the board of governors.
That
which
makes
has been
sense.
Really, to me, I think maybe one of the directions we're going here is at the stage of life. How do you give back to the people and the institutions that have been really important to you? We go to the Naval Academy, but then National Wrestling Hall of Fame. What I'm passionate about is just getting the word out there about how the sport is very accessible. Yeah. And it's something that can have such a meaningful impact on your life. It did for me. And really try to make it more accessible, continue to make it accessible to all kinds of young men and women who can use that as a springboard to so many things, get into a school they might not otherwise.
That's right.
And the lessons, I'm telling you, you don't know, the lessons I learned from the commitment, discipline, and the grit and the grind have really helped me in a lot of ways throughout my career. So that's how I think. It's actually before that. Somehow we were, I don't know, maybe you saw my cauliflower ear or something. We started talking about it.
No, it wasn't that. It was my high school wrestling coach, Mickey Martin. He was a national champion at OU. He got inducted. So I got on the mailing list. And I donated some money and I went up to his induction. Cool. And then somewhere along the way, I get this, Jamey Cummings, wait a minute. I know that guy. And so that's how I put two and two together. And then a couple of times you posted some LinkedIn stuff. And so I definitely realized we have a common.
It's a brotherhood.
It is.
Well, brother and a sisterhood. Like, it's amazing how much.
Dude, I'm with you.
I still remember when I was younger, when I was wrestling, there were some young badass, can I say that? Badass girls that would beat some of the boys.
We'll bleep it out later. No,
but then by the time you got to like middle school, just physiologically, it was just different.
Yeah.
And I was really blown away when I first moved to Texas, because I grew up in Iowa, didn't really think of Texas as a wrestling state. But we moved here in 2004, and high school girls wrestling was really on the upswing, and it's really robust now. Now in wrestling, there are way more high school and college teams that have girls teams than there ever used to be. And I think it's awesome.
It is
They
awesome.
can compete on equal ground. I think it's great. It's a little weird for me
Yeah.
still to see women with like cauliflower ear, but it's just a new paradigm you have to get used to. I think it's great.
My, not mine, but our CIO's assistant at Dr. Pepper's daughter got into it, and I've been following her, and she is a badass.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
I think she got a college, opportunity.
Well,
as
it's Division I in certain
Yeah,
schools
yeah.
now. I mean, University of Iowa, not surprisingly, is leading the charge on that front. I think in the Olympics, it's like a big sport. It's great.
Yeah, Texas Arlington is the first Texas NCAA Division I flag football for women. And I've been trying to convince them. That's my alma mater. I played football there. I didn't wrestle. I wrestled, but it was a club. And trying to get them to have a women's wrestling program. Mostly because, Title IX, I mean, the sports at universities of that size should be across the board. Everything that's,
it's great.
It's the largest school in the nation without a football team.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, crazy number. But they can't have a football team unless they don't have a lot of women's scholarships too. So it's kind of like
where you go with wrestling.
You got to balance it.
It's a good one.
I'm with you. Let's make that happen. But yes, you were right on. I wanted to understand the connection to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and also what makes you tick. But tell me about how did you end up in Texas? You moved here.
Yeah, I moved here in 2004. So my background is I'm a Midwesterner at heart still.
Yeah.
Born in Minnesota, grew up in small town Iowa, and I was recruited to the Naval Academy to wrestle serendipitously. I still give a lot of credit to my high school superintendent, who was way savvier than I was.
Yeah, they all were.
He saw 16, something in
17,
me, and he introduced me to my congressman, who was just visiting our high school, and said, "Hey, did you ever consider a service academy?" And I said, "No, sir, I haven't." I mean, all I knew about the Navy or the military in general was Top Gun.
Yeah.
And it's just so happened. My dad,
that's enough.
Yeah, my dad was my high school coach. Said, well, I happen to know the head coach at Navy. Well, he had coached my dad as a graduate assistant at Mankato State. So went away from home and bounced around in the Navy. And then my best friend from high school married my wife now's older sister. And then we got married, and after I left the Navy, she said, "Yeah, I followed you around. I don't care what you do, just get us to Texas." So we actually came here and moved to Frisco to be one neighborhood over from my brother-in-law, who is basically, I'm the oldest of the three boys, but he was my third brother. And that's what brought us here. But also there's a number of things. One is it's a good location for travel. As long as you have a swimming pool, reasonably good weather, and it's Texas, I think, had really good public schools.
Yep.
And
particularly north.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it's a good place for wealth accumulation and preservation.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's how we ended up here and why we stayed here.
Excellent. And you have kids?
Yeah.
You said you might be having a grand.
Oh, it will be. Yeah.
When's that?
So about 2 weeks from now.
Dang.
Yeah, our son and his wife Ari have a little girl on the way, so a little Cummings girl coming, and then our daughter is living her best life up in New York. She's a little bit more like me. She's got the free spirit wanderlust, and she wants to go explore and do different things. And so we're at that stage of life now where it's you and I talked about this a little bit before. Yeah. When I left my prior firm and had one of the best gifts ever, they enforced the 6 months of gardening leave, so I was paid a little bit amount to not work for 6 months. Mm-hmm. One of the best professional gifts ever. And it was time where I was thinking, hey, where am I in my stage of my career now? What makes sense? And there's a number of authors I'd read and listened to, and there's notion of like 3 big stages of life. That first one, your first, let's call it 22 years.
Yeah.
Everyone's investing in you. Then you are building your own foundation, or as I like to think about, as much as I fly, you put on your mask first. I think I got my mask pretty well strapped on, and then
help everybody else.
And then you help others out. And so this is a stage now where it's like both work-wise and with my kids is like what impact am I going to have, whether it's that or the National Wrestling Hall of Fame or the Naval Academy Alumni Association. It's fun to be a point now where, and the people I work with know I use a lot of corny analogies, but it's a lot of it as it works like how the name right here, the JM Search, is more important than the one on the back, and how do we really continue to drive that mindset within the firm?
Beautiful.
I went on a bit of a stream of consciousness there.
No, that's good. That's good. You got.
But that's how we ended up in Texas.
And no, that's cool. everybody is hurrying to get to Texas unless you happen to not believe that. I got here. My dad was GM in a cable television business that got sold to Charlie Sammons, who's a Dallas icon, and then he sold it to Time Warner, and that's how we ended up getting to Texas.
Okay.
I'm happy. I'm from New Jersey. Well, Lancaster, Pennsylvania is where I'm born, but wrestling was huge. I have 4 brothers. We all wrestled.
Well, PA, as much as I really value the heritage of Iowa wrestling, part of it's a numbers game with population, but if you look every year at the 80 Division I All-Americans in wrestling, I don't think it's a majority, but there is a plurality of them coming from wrestling in high school in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But you also got New Jersey, Ohio. There's obviously some legit wrestling out there.
And Oklahoma. And,
Oklahoma, they just there's many of. Yeah. Same with Iowa and Oklahoma. Yeah. Really good, just didn't have the population.
We, when I was in high school, we would wrestle here and beat the crap out of everybody. But the wrestling coach knew we had to go north of the border to really get ready. And and so we
go where the good
always did. Halls Valley Invitational. We'd go up we did the Oklahoma Open every Thanksgiving. What a absolute butt kick of a wrestling tournament. And
I believe it.
But back to what you said, what that does, what it builds you, what it it is not for the faint at heart. The training and the weight loss and the strength and conditioning.
The thing to me, Gerry, too, is that there's something about going out on the mat. You shake hands with your opponent, and it's you and that person.
That's right.
That's it. There is no one else you
boxing
can
gloves or
blame if things don't go your way or otherwise. Either you, at the end of the match, you shake hands, either your hand is raised or it's not, and you have to look in the mirror. And that's a lot of pressure. And I could tell you when I was a kid, my dad was my coach. He started me early. So I was a kindergartner. He had me wrestling first and second graders. I got my butt kicked a lot, and I didn't handle it very well. But I stuck with it. And boy, the self-confidence just to go out there and the determination at all. And of course you throw in the weight cutting later makes a lot of difference. But some people say it builds character. Some say it reveals it. I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
That's one thing I really liked about it. But it's interesting too. It's not, wrestling is a unique combination of a team and an individual sport.
Sure it is.
Like you go out on your own, but you're not going to be any good. You can't wrestle a dummy, right? You need your teammates to make you better, even though you may be the one on the mat. And I think it's just really amazing combination of team and individual sport that's hard to replicate. There's other sports
totally
like that,
agree.
but it's pretty powerful.
Well, the
boxing would be another, for example. Yeah.
But to your point, so when you win a state high school wrestling championship, we won my sophomore and my senior year. Both of those were because of accumulated points in your individual efforts, added together with the rest of your team's points of their individual efforts to reach a team score. People don't even know that. And I told you I wrote a book, and it's still at the editor, but when you will totally relate to everything.
I look forward to it. Well, if I think
it's going to be a blast.
Had conversations recently about, Army Navy football is a great event, but Army Navy wrestling was really, really intense, and I wrestled in that 3 times. Yeah. And when you go to service academy, especially Army Navy, there's every year there's a competition. We call it the N-Star. So we want to beat Army across all of our sports more often than they beat us. But you obviously want to win your individual sport.
Sure.
So interestingly, to your point, there are 10 weight classes. You may win or lose your match, but it's the cumulative team scores that determine whether or not you get your N-Star.
That's right.
My sophomore year, we went to Army. I lost my match, but we won.
Right.
That was a very, very bittersweet N-Star.
Oh my God.
For me. I subsequently won my match the 2 following years, and we won, which was great. But that's one of those where you have the really interesting mix of emotions. And actually, I want to raise something else that's really powerful about the brotherhood of wrestling. One of my best friends to this day, again, Jake Garcia, he actually works in this building. He was a year ahead of me at West Point.
What? This is the Mecca Minutes studio. What building are you referring to?
The Bank of America building.
I'm just kidding.
But he, so he actually did an exchange at Navy first semester, wrestled the same weight class. So we were technically teammates.
Okay.
Beat me out.
Yeah.
That match that I mentioned I lost at West Point, Jake is the guy who beat me. Pretty handily.
Yeah.
The following year at Navy, he was senior, I was a junior. I beat him. And we never have wrestled the rubber match, by the way. Subsequently, he went to the Navy after graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward like 9 years later, I determined I was looking to make a move, go out, get out of the military, and go get my master's degree. And I thought, while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and see, hey, what if the military could support me to get my master's, and I stayed in. I called the Bureau of Naval Personnel, and the phone number was a guy named Lieutenant Jacob Garcia. And this is before cell phones and all that.
Oh, how funny.
So I said, wow,
What's
could
the
it
chance?
be?
Yeah.
And I called, and he said, Lieutenant Garcia. And I said, is this the same Jake Garcia that wrestled at Army? He's like, yeah.
That's great.
And so, interestingly, I was not going to apply to business school at Stanford. I just thought maybe it's a bridge too far. And he said, dude, I'm going there this fall. You should apply. Well, it turns out I applied, got in. We lived one neighborhood apart. He came to Texas, and now I count him on the short list of what I would call my Keith Hernandez friends. The guy, if it's a Seinfeld reference.
It's great. No, that's great.
Anyway, it's interesting how
I don't know if everybody else is going to know that, but you have to watch that episode.
But it's one of those where, I think I learned a lot about sportsmanship as well and humility.
Yeah.
Like you're out there on the mat, you appreciate your opponent, but at the end of the day, you walk off the mat and you respect each other. And it's crazy that he's one of my best friends now.
Yeah. So one thing I will disclose is I lost the state championship 3 times to 3 different wrestlers. And that comment you made and having 2 state championships as a team, I can totally relate to the fact, but I was miserable for losing. The first one was bad. But the subsequent ones, it was just, I can't catch a break.
So I'm curious, looking back now, what did you learn from that, right? That helped you later on to prepare for other challenges, or maybe made you a better teammate or a better leader?
Wow, that's a great question. This is I'm supposed to be interviewing you.
I interview people a lot for a living.
It's all right. So I will say that it was, the first one's the most memorable. He was better than me. I felt I prepared very well, but it was my mind that cost me.
Like, is that because in your mind you knew he was better than you? And you let it get to you?
I doubt it.
I've been there.
The first time that I can think of, I have I'm very confident. I have maybe even to the point where it's not attractive, but I beat everybody.
Did you show too much respect to this guy? I've done that before where I think I put them on too much of a pedestal. Like, this would be great if I beat them, instead of like, no, I could beat this guy. I know he's good. But
I wish I had done that. Good. I didn't. I obsessed over it. So there was a guy named Blair Ward who I beat. He beat me in the conference championships. I beat him in the regionals, which made me the 2 seed in the tournament. But Blair beat me, and Blair got beaten so bad by this guy in the championship, I thought, oh my God, I had to do everything I could to beat Blair. And this guy murdered him. And
sometimes it's just matchups.
Messed with me. Yeah. But it was, I respected him.
Yeah,
and I still respected him. And then when we went on to nationals and we were doing the freestyle, he excelled. He and another guy named Evan Bernstein, who I don't think I ever lost to Evan. Yet Evan went on to wrestle in the Olympic. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff there. 1980 we boycotted the Olympics, so I got nixed from being in anything that I could look back on my time and say, I finally, I did, I crossed over. But all that to say, man, it's been great having you here. I do want the WWW for the Wrestling Hall of Fame, if that's a charity that you might want to promote. Is there anything else that you get involved in that you might want to share?
Here's what I would say about National Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's a 50-year anniversary.
This year?
Yep.
Okay.
And the executive director, a guy named Leroy Smith,
Yeah.
he was a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
He was a fierce competitor, but one of the nicest, kindest guys you'll ever meet. I think he's one of those guys that probably speaks softly and carries a big stick.
Yeah.
He is outgoing. He is retiring. He's going to stay around to help. But we are in the process of trying to recruit an executive director who will be his successor.
In Stillwater.
In Stillwater.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's nwhof.org, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's
we'll get it right.
The 50th anniversary. It's a great institution, and under Leroy's leadership has really helped support the sport of wrestling. Helped support the sport of wrestling. And we're looking to hand the reins over to someone else who's just as passionate as he is about the sport.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting to be a part of it. It's a challenging search.
Sure. We
have a high bar, but it's that handing over the baton to someone else who can continue to grow on the legacy he's built. And
they're lucky to have you. You know how to do it. You know how to find the right people and look for the right.
We're working on
it.
Yeah, but if anyone's interested, we're taking inbound interest.
So I guess that really kind of does it for the Mecca Minutes. You've been awesome. I really appreciate you coming in.
It's been great, Gerry.
Now, when I first reached out to you, you were like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to say? I said, trust me, it'll happen.
Well, I guess I was concerned that, interestingly, this little fake it till you make it, recruiting CIOs. Well, the good thing is, at the end of the day, as you and I have discussed, what really differentiates technology leaders, the leaders in general, is what I call the softer skills. If you start dig deep into technology, I'm out of my element. But if you're talking leadership, then I'm happy. I want to talk about that.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on the Mecca Minutes.
Thanks, Gerry. It's been great.
And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you need me. I certainly will put a bunch of ways of reaching out. I'm not big into the likes and subscribes, but I keep being told I need to, so then I could turn and monetize this thing. But I just do it because I love doing it. And I do love the people who reach out to me looking for jobs. So in the event that I do find somebody who's looking and I can reference, I'll share them with you. But with that, thank you very much.